Welcome back. Today we're back in the shop and we're going to load a piece of 2 mil carbon fiber onto a wasteboard. There's several ways to hold material down, some of which include mechanical fasteners such as clamping. You could clamp the edge of this piece down and then it'll basically just stay in place. The only downside to that method is say if you're cutting out, let's see what I got here. Let's say you're just cutting out a profile of a wrench, for instance. If you do the clamping method, say you put 4 clamps all the way around this thing, it'll hold in place. What will happen is you're going to cut this piece out here, and then it's just going to be sitting free. You have the potential of that piece flying out, or potentially getting eaten up by the bit. Sometimes it'll walk over, or it'll push this piece aside on the very last cut, and it'll prevent it from cutting cleanly. You also have the potential of getting sucked up by the dust collection system too, if the part is small enough. If it's big enough, usually it's okay and it's not going to flop up in there and wreck your piece. Because once you wreck your piece, you're out that much money on that piece of material. So tool holding is very important. It goes in correlation with 3D printing. Your first layer, if that doesn't stick, your printer will, or your print will fail. You want to have a good first layer, whereas this you want to have very good tool holding. This is what keeps the piece down and what keeps it from flying out when you're cutting. We're cutting with some pretty typical bits. They're multi-fluted burr bits. They don't really have like an upward spiral. They're very even cutting. So they more or less just push the material out of the way. If you're cutting a lot of wood projects, you'll have spiral bits that tend to spiral upwards, and it pulls the chips out of the pockets. With carbon fiber stuff, it doesn't really pull the material out of the pocket. It kind of just keeps it there. So when I have dust collection, it pulls the dust out for me. So it's not like your piece is going to come flying out, but it could with dust collection. If you're not using dust collection, the way I would probably do this is mechanical fastening. Another form of mechanical fastening is actually hot glue. This works really good. You can actually put a dab of hot glue under the corner over here, and then I run a whole bead all the way around this. If I know I'm going to cut a lot of big parts, I'll probably go this route because it's a lot cheaper and easier to go about it. So another thing you can do is screws. You could basically just screw your material down to the wasteboard, and then you secure the wasteboard with clamps. That's probably the cheapest route because screws are reusable. It's very fast, but you got to be cautious where your screws are. If you put them right at the corners, you'd probably be pretty safe because you can just know that you're not going to cut there. And you can actually have a template set up in the CNC software so you can actually program those screws to be there so you know you're not going to cut through them. That's probably the easiest way to go about it. But you'd make mistakes, and sometimes you'll come up and you'll hit the screw head. I've done this before. I actually programmed a tool path where I redid the holes. I had them selected twice, and it came back to redo the holes. Well, it basically grinded the head right off my screws, and I couldn't get the screws out of the sheet. So it was a bummer deal. I killed a bit. I killed probably 6 pieces of carbon because I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, it was kind of BS. So I don't do that one anymore just because I've had some bad experiences. With what I know now, I could probably go back and do it again and just be more cautious of what I'm going to end up doing for that. Another fancy option is you can get this kind of spendy tape. This is double-sided woodworking tape. Works very well, very tacky stuff. Only downside to this is if you're cutting small pieces or a lot of pieces, it's not great. This is better off for cutting like one big piece, such as something like, say if you're going to cut like a little sign out of this. You can map it out where you can lay a couple strips of this tape down and you can cut it, and then it's not going to move or pull up off of the CNC. The only downside of this stuff, it's super gummy. Like if it gets into your bit, you're going to have issues cutting the rest of the project out. So if it gets tangled up in there early game, it covers your entire bit and your shit doesn't cut well. So I avoid that one if I can. If I know I'm going to cut big pieces, great option. All right, so here's the final method and the method we're going to do today. This works really well for me. This is just painter's tape and CA glue. We're effectively making our own double-sided tape. The nice part about this adhesive, when it dries, it's very, very hard. So when the CNC bit goes over it, it actually just turns to dust. That's super handy. There's a little bit of tack on this painter's tape, but not enough to really gum up the bit bad. I can cut a whole sheet of carbon usually out of one bit and not have any issues. It does gum up on the tip of the carbon when you're kind of doing your holes. You'll get a little bit on the end, but you just clean it off per job and it's just fine. But yeah, that's how I'm going to show you guys what I do for this. I'm just going to do a quick time-lapse video and show you what it kind of takes to run through this. I usually have to do 2 layers of tape on the base if I want to reuse this wasteboard, because if I do 1 layer, the CA glue will seep through and it actually kind of like glues the tape to the board. So if I do 2 layers of tape on the wasteboard, it's enough to where I can get under that 2nd layer and pull the tape back up, because as you can tell, this board's been used a couple of times before, so this method works. And then you'll do 1 more layer of tape on this side, and then you put a bunch of glue down, and then you spray this side with the activator, and then you stick it to the piece and you're done. Now it's one with the wasteboard, and then you clamp the wasteboard down and you cut material. All right, on to the time lapse of the tape job. The best part right here. Nice fresh carbon sheet ready to cut. Oh, I made it nice. Yeah, this method works the best for me. I can cut out a lot of different parts and not have to worry about if like a little part's gonna get sucked up into the vacuum. And then I don't have to like reload a sheet. You know, here's an example. Like here's a piece I'm cutting arms out with. I don't have to think about it. Let's just grab this piece, load it back in, clamp down this, and I start my job. I don't have to load the sheet up every time. It's already preloaded. So it's kind of nice to have like a little system that I have. And then I have these saved on my computer as templates, you know. Every last job I did, I just saved that, and that's how much material I know I lost. So then I move on to the next one, and I'll start placing arms up here now, you know, and then keep cutting. So yeah, this kind of seems to fit my workflow the best. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions, any recommendations, any suggestions of other options to hold your stuff down with. But I've tried a lot of different things, and this seems to work the best for me. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video. I think we're gonna do kind of a cost analysis video next. We're gonna talk about how to buy your carbon. We'll talk about what it costs, how much you should charge per part, and I'll kind of let you know what I do for charging. So yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.